All right, let's talk about something super important in cloud networking, Google Cloud NAT. Have you ever stopped to think about how your private, lockdown resources can actually reach out to the internet for things like updates or APIs without, opening the floodgates to attackers? Well, if you have, you are absolutely in the right place. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the big problem we're trying to solve. Then, we'll introduce Cloud NAT itself, get into the nitty-gritty of how it works, check out its two main flavors, public and private NAT, and wrap up with why this all matters so much. Sound good? Let's jump in. Okay, first things first. Why do we even need something like Cloud NAT? Well, it all boils down to this classic fundamental challenge that pretty much every single network architect has to deal with. And here it is, the big question. How do your private resources connect to the internet safely, right? I mean, you've done all this work to build your infrastructure inside a private, super secure, isolated network. But then, inevitably, those resources need to reach out to the rest of the world. So how do you let them talk outbound without just letting anybody and everybody talk inbound? I love this analogy. Think of your private VPC subnet as a secure island. It's your fortress. Your resources on that island, they need supplies from the mainland, which is, of course, the internet. Things like software updates, data from APIs, all that good stuff. But you don't want to build a giant public bridge that lets anyone just wander onto your island, right? Assigning a public IP to everything is like building that bridge. It works, but it's a huge security risk. And that, right there, is the dilemma. So, what's Google's solution to this island dilemma? Well, they've built this awesome, fully managed service that's kind of like a secure, controlled shipping port for your island. It lets your ships go out to get supplies, but it has guards that block any unauthorized ships from coming in. Okay, let's get official for a second. The definition of Cloud NAT is a fully managed network address translation service for secure, scalable, outbound connectivity for Google Cloud resources. Whew, that's a mouthful. But the key words to focus on are managed, secure, and outbound. Managed means Google takes care of all the hard stuff for you. Secure means it's designed to protect your network. And outbound is crucial. It's all about traffic that starts inside your network and goes out. So, what kind of stuff can actually use this? Pretty much the whole shebang. We're talking your compute engine VMs, your GKE clusters, even serverless things like Cloud Run instances and Cloud Functions. App Engine can use it too, with the right setup. The bottom line is, if it's a resource living inside your VPC and it needs a way to talk to the internet, Cloud NAT is going to be its best friend. All right, let's peel back the layers and see how this thing actually works under the hood, because it's not just some simple proxy server. The real magic of Cloud NAT is in its architecture. It's what makes it so powerful and so efficient. Honestly, it's a total game changer compared to how we used to do this. And this is the really cool part. See, the traditional way to do NAT was to set up your own fleet of virtual machines to act as proxy servers. You'd have to route all your traffic through them, which, it could create huge performance bottlenecks. And it was a nightmare to manage and scale. Cloud NAT just throws all that out the window. It's a software-defined service, so there are no intermediary proxies to worry about. It works directly with your VMs, which makes the whole process way more efficient. So let's follow a request on its journey. It all starts with one of your private resources, say a VM, sending a request out to the internet. The Cloud NAT gateway sees this, and bam, it translates that private source IP into a public NAT IP. The request goes out, does its thing, and then the response comes back. But it comes back to that public NAT IP. The gateway is smart, though. It keeps a record so it knows exactly which private VM sent the original request. It then translates the address back and sends the response right where it needs to go. It's a perfect, seamless, and totally secure round trip. Now, it's also really important to note that Cloud NAT isn't just a one-trick pony. It actually comes in two different flavors, and each one is designed for a very different kind of job.
The big difference between them is the destination. Public NAT is the one we've been focused on so far. It's all about giving your private resources a path to the public internet. But then you've got private NAT, and this is for a totally different use case. This is for when you need your private networks to talk to other private networks that they're not directly connected to. So let's say you have two different VPCs that aren't peered, maybe one for prod and one for an internal tool. Private NAT lets them talk to each other without ever touching the public internet. Pretty cool, right? Okay, let's zoom out and bring it all together. Why does this matter? Why should Cloud NAT be a non-negotiable part of your Google Cloud Toolkit?
Well, it really comes down to a few huge benefits. First and foremost, security.
You get that outbound connectivity you need, but it blocks any unsolicited inbound traffic by default. Huge win. Then there's scalability. It's a fully managed service, so it just scales up and down automatically with your workload. You don't have to do a thing. Next up is convenience. Say goodbye to the nightmare of managing and patching a bunch of proxy servers. And finally, it's super reliable. It's built on Google's high-availability software-defined network. What's not to love?
Okay, one last thing, and this is a really important point of clarification. Don't mix up Cloud NAT with something called private Google access. They sound similar, but they do totally different jobs. Remember, Cloud NAT is for connecting to the public internet. Private Google access is specifically for when your private resources need to talk to Google's own APIs and services. Think BigQuery, cloud storage, that kind of thing. It lets you do all of that over Google's private network, so you don't even need Cloud NAT or a public IP for those connections.
And that really brings us to the final big takeaway. Look, building a secure private network is awesome, but it's only half the battle. You've got to have a smart, secure, and scalable strategy for how those resources talk to the outside world. And Cloud NAT is an amazing tool for that. So it leaves me with one final question for you to think about. Your infrastructure is secure, but is it connected? What's your outbound strategy?